60-year-old New York chiropractor Mary Yoder attends to her patients at her Whitesboro medical practice. It's a successful chiropractic business she and her husband Bill have owned for more than 30 years. On this particular Sunday, it was business as usual.
She was seeing patients throughout the day. That day she left for lunch to go take care of her mom. When she came back to work, probably around 1:30, a few hours later while at work, she became ill.
Not able to shake her sickness, Mary heads home early, around 4:30.
She doesn't know what she's sick from. She's just having diarrhea and vomiting at this time.
Odd symptoms for Mary Yoder, who is usually the picture of health. Part of her medical practice included a belief in holistic medicine and herbal supplements, even growing some of her own herbs in her cherished home garden.
My sister was very health conscious, okay, and she sold these supplements and stuff. I mean, she lived on supplements.
Back at her home, Mary decides to try to sleep it off. But by morning, her symptoms have taken a turn for the worse.
The following morning, her husband Bill brings her to the St. Luke's emergency room.
Mary is admitted to the hospital and doctors run a battery of tests trying to identify what's making her so violently ill. It's now been over 24 hours since Mary first became sick.
At 10 o'clock that night, she gets up and she falls in the hospital in her room, at which time, after that, they then admit her into ICU at the hospital, where she just continues to deteriorate.
Tragically, by morning, Mary suffers her first heart attack. This will be followed by a staggering 7 more.
The final one in the afternoon is when she passes away.
Just 48 hours after leaving feeling under the weather, Mary is dead. Cause of death? Doctors are at a loss.
It just didn't make sense based on Mary's age and her health and stuff.
Because Mary dies under the hospital's care, a routine autopsy is ordered.
Once she fell, the hospital, because she had been in the hospital for over 24 hours, they then want an autopsy done.
And the autopsy results?
They look at the slides underneath the microscope. There's something not right.
The autopsy showed that she was a perfectly healthy woman who something so virulent had entered her body to cause complete organ shutdown within like 36 hours. And I said, so what are you saying, like insect bite or something?
But it was no insect bite. It was poison.
This had to be shocking.
It was very shocking.
The medical examiner's office contacts Poison Control for help. They test Mary's body for common arsenic and cyanide poisonings. The results are negative. Then 2 long months pass for Mary's friends and family when chemists at Poison Control get a positive hit.
Had you ever heard of this particular poison before?
Never.
She died from colchicine toxicity, which poisoned her.
Colchicine, when used properly, is an effective medicine for treating gout, which is an inflammation of the joints. But if you don't have gout,
A little dab will do it. It takes only a minute amount to get somebody sick or kill them.
Colchicine toxicity causes fever, abdominal cramping, vomiting. Basically, all of your liquids leave your body.
She suffered a number of heart attacks. I mean, this was a death that was drawn out over a period of almost 2 days. How would you characterize this death and what she went through?
I'd say it would be brutal.
We couldn't believe our sister had died of colchicine poisoning.
now they know the substance that killed her. Investigators have to find out how it got in her body.
She has a garden and possibly had taken something from the garden. She also takes supplements. So they're also looking at some contamination in the supplements. They had those collected and sent out for test.
The results? No contamination. It was no accident, and even suicide is off the table. After investigators speak with friends and family, that leaves just one unsettling option.
Somebody murdered her.
Mary Yoder's death is ruled a homicide by the medical examiner's office. Now, they know how she died, but who poisoned Mary?
Anytime somebody dies, the spouse is, somebody that's looked at usually very hard, and for good reason. Oftentimes, they're responsible for it.
On the day Mary became ill, oddly, her ever-present husband Bill was absent from the office. And Bill's absence makes cops suspicious, especially when they can't verify his whereabouts.
Were you questioned?
I was brought in at the very beginning of the investigation. I got the impression they thought Bill did it. And they asked me flat out, did I think he did it? At that point in time, I said no, because in all fairness to another human being, I have no reason to think he did. But I said, I will qualify that, however, though, if you find out that he's involved with another woman, then I think it's possible. That's exactly what I said.
And Bill allegedly was involved with another woman, and not just any other woman.
It turned out to be my sister.
As in older sister, Kathy.
Do you think Bill's relationship with Kathy began before Mary died?
Yes, I do.
Even though Bill and Kathy are a couple now, both deny they were romantically involved until 2 months after Mary's death. But there were other things. Bill didn't seem that interested in the investigation and started taking frequent trips out of town. For Mary's family and even police, it was all painting one very suspicious picture of husband Bill.
You know, he didn't seem to be, anybody that saw him
grieving
said,
widow.
yeah, he just didn't seem to be.
But before cops can question Bill, they get something in the mail that makes them question everything.
The Onondaga County Medical Examiner's Office calls the Sheriff's Department. They've received an anonymous letter that claims to have information regarding the case.
New York doctor Mary Yoder has been poisoned to death. Cops suspect the husband until authorities receive an anonymous letter and it's naming names. Actually, 2 letters.
The Onondaga County Medical Examiner's Office calls the Sheriff's Department. They've received an anonymous letter that claims to have information regarding the case. That same day, the Oneida County Sheriff's Office receives an identical copy of that letter claiming the same.
More specifically, the letters claim to know who poisoned Mary Yoder.
They pointed to Mary Louise Yoder's youngest child, Adam Yoder.
That's right, the letters claim that Mary's son Adam killed his mom. And the letters identify the lethal lacing by name, colchicine, the very same toxic substance discovered in Mary's body. Cops immediately shift their focus from Bill Yoder and turn it to his son. Adam is quickly brought in for questioning, and cops grill him about the letter.
Tell him some of the stuff that's in the letter, saying that there's some evidence in Adam's car that we would be interested in.
Evidence?
What is his reaction?
He's kind of shocked when he hears everything, and we tell him what we want to do, look in his vehicle.
Oneida County Sheriff's deputies inspect the car, and just as it was described in the letter, under the passenger seat, they find it.
A bottle of colchicine, a cardboard wrapper, and a receipt detailing the transaction. And that receipt has an email address that's similar to several that Mr. Yoder has.
Cops appear to have their prime suspect in the murder case of Mary Yoder. Now they just need to corroborate their findings and interview potential witnesses. They start with those who know Adam best, like his on-again, off-again girlfriend, Kaitlyn Conley.
When Mary Yoder died, Katie was identified as a loved one in her obituary.
Kaitlyn also worked for the Yoders at their chiropractic business.
She works the front desk. She's been working there for 4 years.
Kaitlyn was very close with Mary and her family and even made this Facebook post the day after Mary passed. In it, she wrote, quote, "If love could have saved you, you would have lived forever," and ends with this thought, "God has gained the best angel. We love you." Detectives figure if anything suspicious was going on between Adam and his mother, Kaitlyn might know about it.
We were hoping she would provide she was going to be a witness and provide us some information if there was anything that she knew about.
She has information, all right.
She's pointing the finger at Adam.
In this never-before-released police interrogation, Kaitlyn tells cops that Adam admitted to poisoning his mother.
Adam told you that he did this to his mother?
Right.
And where he put the colchicine?
Right.
And he told you all this. Why would he tell anybody on this what he did?
I don't know.
Why would he confide in anybody? You did something to somebody, why?
Right, and I think it's like a power thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a control thing. It's another thing that keeps me.
So he's going to tell you he did something like this, and then control you from saying anything, or what? He's going to use that how against you?
Yeah, like, what can I say?
Between this shocking revelation from Kaitlyn and the incriminating letters, cops believe they have their man. Case closed? Well, maybe not so fast. While cops bring in Kaitlyn for another interview, explosive intel comes back from the state police forensic lab. They believe the letters originated from the Yoder's place of business, and they've tested the anonymous letters for DNA.
They said there was female DNA underneath the stamp.
Female DNA. It's an interesting fact that gets cops thinking about the person who could have written these letters. They ask Kaitlyn for a DNA sample. She readily offers it up. And this theory.
She describes to us what she does at the office as far as she pre-stamps the envelopes.
Kaitlyn even reportedly brings in envelope samples and letterhead from the office.
She wants to help us find who killed Mary Yoder.
And this same time, detectives take another look at evidence collected from Adam's car. Along with the poison was the receipt and an email address attached to the transaction.
When he's questioned regarding this, Adam says, it's similar to some that I have, but that's not my account.
But detectives don't just take his word for it.
They had subpoenaed Google to get some more information about that Gmail account.
The results? The email address has only been accessed in two places, at Kaitlyn Conley's home and on her cell phone.
That's when we said, this can't be Adam. Adam has no control over this phone, only you do. So we know you went in, you logged into that account. There's no way, there's no other physical way. You had to enter a password, you had to log into it, okay? Agreed?
I hear you, yeah.
Okay, there's no other way, he can't do that. He's not here, he doesn't have access to your phone.
Right, I don't think so.
No, he can't. We checked. There's no way he can get into your phone if he's not here. He can't dial into it, be anywhere else. He can't get into your phone. Can't do it. So we verified that.
Right.
So we know you're the one that logs into this Gmail account.
At this point, cops believe Kaitlyn is hiding something. But the 23-year-old woman continues to point the finger at her ex-boyfriend Adam. And to detectives, Kaitlyn's story sounds oddly familiar, like they've heard it somewhere before or read it.
We had always believed that whoever wrote this letter was responsible for Mary's death.
So detectives ask her flat out if she wrote the anonymous letter.
We needed to know who wrote that letter. So you wrote the letter to the ME's office and to us, correct? You said you typed that up at school?
Yeah.
Okay, and you got the letters, the envelopes from the office?
Yep.
In which time she admitted that she was the author of the letter. She wrote the letter.
Kaitlyn Conley's no longer a witness.
And from that point on, she was a #1 suspect for us.
Kaitlyn is arrested and charged with Mary Yoder's murder. But what could her motive possibly be? Why in the world would Kaitlyn want to do what cops are accusing her of, murdering her boss and framing her one-time boyfriend? In their fourth and final interview with Kaitlyn, cops press the young woman, searching for a motive.
The only question we have left is why.
My life is over.
Your life's not over, Katie. You're young. Your life is not over. You just need to know why. What drove you to this? What drove you to do this, Katie? Was it Adam?
No, I go to jail. I'll go to jail forever.
No, you will not, Katie. You won't go to jail forever. There's reasons for everything. Why, Katie? Help me understand.
I wouldn't risk my life for this. You don't even know how much. I just want.
I know.
Oh, you don't know. This is my whole life.
I know it is.
Kaitlyn Conley is charged with second-degree murder and the death of her beloved boss. But cops still don't have a motive. 23-year-old Kaitlyn Conley is charged with second-degree murder and the fatal poisoning of her boss, Mary Yoder. The Oneida County Courthouse is packed as opening statements begin in the sensational murder trial that rocked the quiet upstate New York City of Utica.
And I'm telling you right here and now that this case is entirely about motive.
And Kaitlyn's defense attorney, Christopher Pelley, claims only one person had the motive and means to kill Mary Yoder.
The decedent's husband. It's hard to swallow, but it's there.
That's right. Bill Yoder, the same man who cops began looking at after he went suspiciously absent from their business on the day Mary became ill. The defense claims Bill likely laced Mary's protein shake that morning before work, and that's why he avoided the office that day.
Bill is brilliant. He's a 2-time PhD. He's a highly intelligent man. He's a detailist. He has motive.
Motive, according to the defense, in the form of an alleged illicit affair with Mary's older sister, Kathy Richmond.
We found out that there were several witnesses that placed Kathy and Bill together prior to Mary's passing, including her neighbor.
And there's something else the defense claims directly connects Bill to the toxin that killed his wife.
Superweed, as the defense called it. Killer weed.
Killer weed.
During the 80s, it was acknowledged that there was a mixture that was used. He said Mary came up with this mixture that was used to enhance the growth of plants. Exactly what colchicine would do if it was used to grow marijuana. All you have to do is go on the internet and look that up.
In fact, the defense claims Mary likely ordered this drug, never knowing that it would be one day used to kill her. But prosecutor Laurie Lisi claims Bill had nothing to do with it. She says it was all Kaitlyn, and the motive for murder is pure and simple: revenge. Basically, that after Adam broke up with the defendant,
Kaitlyn was a woman scorned. She wanted to try to get back at Adam by killing his mother.
but two of Mary's own sisters adamantly disagree with the prosecution.
We thought she was being framed.
Do you believe Kaitlyn Conley is responsible for your sister's death?
No, not at all.
And after 3 weeks of testimony and 5 days of deliberations, the defense is able to create enough reasonable doubt to leave jurors hopelessly deadlocked. The judge is forced to declare a mistrial.
The family's through a lot, but we're strong and we know she's innocent.
But prosecutors don't let the charges drop, and 5 months later, Kaitlyn Conley is back on trial for murder. Then, a huge gamble. Right before the start of Kaitlyn's second trial, her family hires a new attorney.
Mary Yoder died from colchicine poisoning. That's true. And that's the only thing that will be proven in this case.
And what's more, a bold and risky move by Kaitlyn's defense team when they completely change their defense strategy. This time, her new attorney, Frank Policelli, plans to abandon the theory that Mary's husband did it, and instead, he points the finger squarely at Mary's son and Kaitlyn's ex-boyfriend, Adam Yoder.
This is what the evidence will show.
Adam is a troubled person, and Mary and he had had a falling out.
The defense begins with painting a toxic relationship between Kaitlyn and Adam, built on codependence and even violence. Mary's nephew, who lived with Adam around the time he dated Kaitlyn, took the stand to testify to their tumultuous relationship.
You think Katie was a victim of domestic violence at the hands of Adam, allegedly?
And I do.
Also, the defense claimed Adam, not Kaitlyn, was the one full of revenge, and that he set out to frame her for his mother's murder after Kaitlyn refused to get back together with him. The defense even enters into evidence text messages from Adam to Kaitlyn where he appears to be begging her to come back. In one text, Adam writes, "I miss you a lot. I'm thinking about you always." Then, in another text, when Kaitlyn claims she got pregnant with Adam's baby and terminated the pregnancy, Adam responds, "I'm so expletive torn up and hurt and confused now." Katie writes, "I didn't want to do that alone, and you didn't want to be there." Adam texts back, "You wouldn't have been expletive alone. I'm not a piece of expletive. That decision should have been made by two people either way."
He said he intended to marry her at one point.
These texts from Adam appear to undermine the prosecution's case that Kaitlyn killed Mary in retaliation after Adam rejected her. Still, the prosecution never wavers from their main theory.
That she was trying to get back at Adam.
But there is one significant thing that prosecutors do change from the last trial to this one. Prosecutors added on the lesser charge of first-degree manslaughter for the jury to consider if they find Kaitlyn not guilty on the second-degree murder charge. Then, after weeks of testimony, Jurors begin deliberations, and they request to take another look at a moment captured on police interrogation video,
Adam told you that he did this to his mother?
where an investigator asks Kaitlyn why she believes Adam would keep the poison in his car that would directly link him to the crime.
I think he would keep it if he wanted to use it for somebody else. Right, but guys also don't use poison. They say it's babies for him.
Jurors wonder if it's a curious statement or guilty slip of the tongue. Either way, they don't seem to be buying the new defense that Adam is the real killer. Instead, they appear to side with the prosecution's presentation of electronic evidence against Kaitlyn, including incriminating searches and transactions captured on the defendant's cell phone and computer.
The cell phone, the computers, and all those things that were forensically examined, those are what the prosecution really relies on and says that realistically, reasonably, who else would have been using these devices to look up the poison, to create the letter of intent.
The evidence is clear, and that the common denominator is this defendant, Kaitlyn Conley.
The now 24-year-old Kaitlyn Conley is found guilty of first-degree manslaughter. But before sentencing, Kaitlyn's defense attorney makes a final plea for the verdict to be thrown out, claiming prosecutors did not prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt that Kaitlyn poisoned Mary.
You cannot prove that on July 20th, 1:15 in the afternoon, at the business of the chiropractic, Kaitlyn Conley poisoned Mary Yoder. It's not there, and never will be there, and the jury's verdict was irrational, and you should set aside the verdict. Thank you.
Then it's time for victim impact statements. Mary Yoder's son and Kaitlyn's ex-boyfriend, Adam Yoder, has a few choice words for his former flame.
I introduced Katie Conley to my family. And because I loved her, and they all accepted her and treated her as family, as blood. Make no mistake, I hate the defendant. With every bone in my body and every drop of blood in my veins, I hate Kaitlyn Ann Conley because Kaitlyn Ann Conley murdered my mother.
And Mary's husband of 40 years, Bill Yoder, also addresses the court.
That even with my son, she decided to murder his mother.
And then you could hear a pin drop as Kaitlyn makes her way to the podium for a final statement to the court before learning her ultimate fate.
With all due respect to the justice system and to our jury system, I'm innocent. And I would like to thank my family and friends and strangers for standing up in support of me.
Support? Yes, and you'll never believe who is in Kaitlyn's corner.
Dear Judge Dwyer, Mary Yoder was my sister. I am writing to you to plead for mercy and leniency as you decide on Kaitlyn's sentence.
A sensational New York trial of passion, poison, and now penalty is underway inside a standing room only Oneida County Courthouse.
The thing that stands out in my mind most of all is those last 2 days of Mary Yoder's life. She went through agony over and over until the end.
When the moment everyone has been waiting for, as Judge Michael Dwyer announces Kaitlyn Conley's fate.
The evidence presented at the trial indicates that Ms. Conley was the only person at that time that knew why this was happening and how her life was going to end. It will be the sentence of this court as to the defendant's conviction for manslaughter in the first degree, that she will be sentenced to a 23-year determinate sentence in state prison.
After 2 trials and weeks of testimony, this bizarre case comes to a close. But not for everyone involved, including some of Mary Yoder's family members.
And they're being very vocal. I mean, they are joining a campaign to essentially free Kaitlyn Conley.
Right.
And making frequent appearances on crime reporter Rocco LaDuca's talk radio show.
I spoke with several sisters of Mary Yoder. They believe Kaitlyn, in this case, the wrong person is being punished for this, that troubles them. Because they know Kaitlyn as well, and they certainly know what Mary thought of Kaitlyn. And they can't believe that she did this.
And Rocco is quick to point out that there wouldn't have been a murder investigation if it wasn't for these same sisters speaking out.
It wasn't Mary's husband or son or daughters that alerted the sheriff's office. It was the same sisters of Mary who alerted the sheriff's office, who now are the ones saying that they believe they've arrested the wrong person.
So if not Kaitlyn, who do they believe really killed Mary?
My brother-in-law and my nephew are responsible for my sister's death.
Her allegation goes against all the evidence presented to the jury. In addition, neither Bill or Adam Yoder has ever been charged in Mary's death, and they have always maintained their innocence. But despite this, a few of Mary's family members still question Kaitlyn Conley's conviction.
I believe that a young woman has been wrongfully convicted, and that the persons involved in my sister's death have immunity.
Mary's sister Janine claims that prosecutors made their first mistake by granting full immunity to both Bill and Adam in exchange for their testimony for Kaitlyn's grand jury proceeding.
It's blanket immunity, total immunity. It can never be revoked.
But the prosecutor defends his decision.
Were they given blanket immunity?
Okay, so in New York State, it's transactional immunity. However, and this is the part that always somehow or another gets left out, however, you do not get immunity if you lie.
But some of Mary's family members feel so strongly in Conley's innocence, they've started the Free Kaitlyn Conley campaign.
The fact of the matter is there were 3 suspects initially. It was William Yoder, Adam Yoder, and Kaitlyn Conley. I couldn't help but question what sort of investigation can you really conduct if you forced your hand to only pursue one person.
And Mary's family members say Bill's affair should have been enough for cops to investigate him further. I spoke with Mary's sister, Sharon, over the phone.
He was found to be with another woman. Later we found out it was our older sister, Kathy.
Do you think Bill's relationship with Kathy began before Mary died?
Yes, I do. Relationships don't just start overnight. A neighbor testified that she had seen Bill over at Kathy's house, and she witnessed, this was testified to, a passionate kiss and embrace between them while she and her daughter were walking by.
Bill and Kathy are a couple now, but in court, both testified their romantic relationship did not start until months after the murder. Then there's Mary's son, Adam. The sisters claim he was on the outs with his mother around the time she died.
Mary and he had had a falling out, and Mary had been an enabler, but she was starting to take a firmer stand with him in that, not giving him money.
Crime Watch Daily reached out to both Bill and Adam Yoder to get their responses to these allegations. So far, they have not gotten back to us. I called up with the lead investigator on the case to get his reaction to the claims made by Mary's family members.
Are you for certain that you have the right person there?
I'm absolutely sure we got the right person. All the evidence came back against Kaitlyn Conley. We interviewed Bill, we interviewed Adam. This was a long 6-month investigation. We talked to a lot of different people. Everybody had the opportunity to speak to us and tell us what their theories, their thoughts were. However, at the evidence at the end, nothing came back on Bill, nothing came back on Adam. Everything came back on Kaitlyn Conley.
Kaitlyn's defense team will be given the opportunity to appeal her conviction.
What do you and your family have to gain by coming on national television here right now in defense for Kaitlyn Conley?
To exonerate her in the public eye, that it will help with the appeal.
Kaitlyn Conley is currently serving a 23-year sentence for first-degree manslaughter. But no matter how much time Kaitlyn spends behind bars, Mary Yoder's family is forever divided over her guilt or innocence and left mourning the loss of one of their beloved members.
What hurts me the most is just knowing that I won't see her again. Our time to be together, to really enjoy each other, and it's just been, stolen.